15. Robert will run. Can't ever figure this thing.
All right, I'll call the February meeting to order. We'll start with a roll call.
Present this evening, Monday, February the 12th, 2024, are Mayor C. Holland Purdue III and Vice Mayor Billy W. Stockton. Council members A. Ralph Casey, David K. Clements, J. Tyler Lee, Benjamin K. Mullins, and Mark H. Newbill. Also participating this evening are staff members as noted.
Do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next I'll ask for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The agenda is approved. Next, I'll have an approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The consent agenda is approved. Next, we have some special items on the agenda tonight. Mr. Wood will be presenting the presentation of the RVARC Executive Director, Mr. Jeremy Holmes.
And while Mr. Holmes is walking up, just to let council know, he has a PowerPoint presentation that his remarks come from, and we got copies of that today. We'll send that out to everyone later, just so you'll have a copy of the information that he's talking about.
Well, thank you. Mayor Purdue, members of Town Council, and Mr. Wood, thank you very much for having me tonight. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the work that we've been doing at the Regional Commission over the past year, and some things that we have coming up on the horizon that have had a direct impact on what's happening here in Rocky Mount. One of the reasons that I'm doing this now actually is we are beginning our annual work program development process. So this is the opportunity for our member governments to reach out, ask for things that they know may be coming up in the coming year, or project opportunities, needs, so that we can make sure that we make space in the coming year to tackle these issues. So I will talk about a couple of areas of work that we do tonight, and that might give you a sense of the breadth of the kinds of work that we do at the Regional Commission, and might inspire some additional ideas, or just let you know where we can be of assistance. I always like to start kind of our annual update with a refresher for those of you who are not familiar with the Roanoke Valley Allegheny Regional Commission and our role assisting our local government partners. We are one of 21 planning districts created by the state, specifically chartered by the Code of Virginia to assist in matters of more than local significance. So that means a lot of our work is working with our local government partners on issues surrounding transportation, economic development, environmental planning, the kinds of issues that don't stop at your border, the things you do affect your neighbors, and vice versa, with a real focus on trying to develop plans and projects that are delivered in the most cost-efficient, effective way possible, by looking at opportunities that you and your neighbors can take advantage of, or challenges that are facing everybody. So by working together and by convening folks around these issues, that we can hopefully find the solutions that work for everyone, or take advantage of opportunities for the entire region. I think we're a pretty good investment for every dollar that we bring in local dues. We leverage that against another $11 in state, federal, and other resources. So those are monies that are reinvested right in this community, sometimes in the programs that we carry out at the commission. Sometimes, and I'll talk about our housing work in a little bit, but sometimes it's allow us to help people build things, and we actually get housing units and things built, and there's a real tangible impact on our localities. But all those resources are reinvested back into our local government members, one way or the other. And finally, when I talk about I don't necessarily mean me and my staff, although we have a very, very talented staff and a committed staff at the commission. When I talk about we, I mean you. We are your regional commission, and we don't get anything done without the engagement and participation and the ideas of our locality members, and particularly of our commissioners. So I want to especially recognize Mr. Clements and Mr. Wood for their participation on the Regional Commission Board and that decision-making body. We have lots of good ideas at staff, but we can't do that without your engagement and energy. So I really appreciate the participation of Rocky Mountain and all of our local government members. I'm going to talk about 3 program areas real quick, so I don't try not to take too much of your time this evening. The first is a project called the Roanoke Valley Collective Response. This is an effort that started in 2018 as an all-volunteer effort of healthcare professionals, of nonprofit leaders, business leaders, elected officials, citizens. They all got together to try to figure out what we can do as a region to address the opioid addiction crisis. That program became formalized under the Regional Commission in 2021, so that's now a staffed program, but it's got that same mission. And so through that program, what we're looking at is how our localities are dealing with this challenge, and knowing that this is an issue that doesn't stop at borders, what resources can we bring through the expertise that we have gathered to address this addiction crisis, whether it's at the front end, whether we're talking about emergency room visits for overdose or that real crisis, the healthcare crisis on the front end, whether it's trying to figure out how we can support law enforcement with resources and equipment to work with folks who are dealing with addiction and engaging with law enforcement in all kinds of different ways, all the way to where someone's at the end of their journey and they're trying to get reintegrated back into their communities and they're looking for housing assistance or transportation or workforce training. So we have folks that can look at those issues and help a community figure out what those local challenges are, how they can connect to those resources, and develop plans and projects to address those. The other area where we're very involved with that, very specifically, is through the Virginia Opioid Abatement Authority, and that is the grant-making authority in the state that is reprogramming the settlement money that's coming from pharmaceuticals and distributors involved in the addiction crisis to begin with. So in that program, there are monies that go directly to cities and counties through direct allocations, but about 30% of the agency's money is through what they call cooperative partnership programs. That are multi-jurisdictional programs that you access through a whole different process. And so our folks at the Collective Response can work with multiple localities, whether it's developing that project. We know we have a problem, but we don't know what tools there are to address it. So we can bring in hospitals and healthcare providers and law enforcement and figure out what a good path to that might be, and then help write the grant to the OAA to get those funds and bring them to our localities to fund those programs. Last year, we did our first round of grant writing with the OAA. It was their first round. It was a very bumpy ride, so we were a bit of guinea pigs in working with this brand new agency. But we were able to receive over $700,000 in funding through a combination of the cooperative program and grant programs for the city of Roanoke for their direct allocation on a number of different programs. So that is a resource that's available to you. And we know, again, this isn't an issue that stops at local boundaries, and this is a whole another pot of money that comes through the cooperative partnership program that are resources that you could have access to. So I do want to point out the grant deadline for this current year is April 1st, but we're happy to start having those conversations or begin now on working on what kind of projects do we want to create for next year, working with Rocky Mount, with Franklin County, and the region more broadly. The second area I want to talk about is transportation. We spend about half of our time working on transportation issues, as you might imagine. I drove through a very rainy, bit congested 220 from Roanoke as I came down into Rocky Mount this evening. One of the things that we've been working a lot on the last several months is in about October, we identified that the Commonwealth Transportation Board was looking at changes to the Smart Scale program, which pretty much funds transportation throughout the Commonwealth. They were looking at changes to that program that would have a severe negative impact on our part of the state. In short, it was going to likely direct a lot of money to Northern Virginia to address congestion and leave a lot of rural Virginia and Southwest Virginia without resources that we needed. So we got to work, started working with our Commonwealth Transportation member, started working with VDOT staff, attended a lot of sometimes contentious Commonwealth Transportation Board meetings. You ever sat in a 3 or 4 hour meeting in Richmond? It's not, it can be fun, but maybe not in a way that everyone wants to get involved with. But we worked to advocate for our region, worked with other statewide partners to tell the story of why we needed these resources and what the danger in the decisions that they were making. So the board met in both December and January. We're happy to report that a lot of the worst of the decisions that they made did not do some of the worst things that we expected them to do. There were some decisions that we aren't so happy with about future smart scale programming. So what we're doing now is first of all continuing to engage. There were a lot of changes in Richmond this year, a lot of new Northern Virginia legislators. So you need to continue to work with them and advocate on behalf of our region and our small urban and rural communities. But we're also focused on working with our staff and with VDOT to help future smart scale applications take advantage of the new rules. So we want to make sure that if these are the rules, what can we do to make sure that our communities are more competitive than the Northern Virginia communities or elsewhere in the state. So our transportation director and staff are here as we go through future rounds of smart scale to provide that technical expertise to work with our VDOT partners. We're very lucky that our district is very engaged with this. Some other districts aren't as engaged, to make sure that you can get the transportation projects that you need in the town and more broadly in the county funded. And finally, the last thing I want to talk about real quick, I mentioned housing earlier. We are working with a brand new federal regional commission, the Southeast Crescent Regional Commission, and you may have encountered them just through the news or maybe through discussions with the West Piedmont Planning District. But the Southeast Crescent Regional Commission is a new federal regional commission that's very similar to the Appalachian Regional Commission, if you're familiar with that. So that's the 60s era program that's focused on economic development in Appalachia. The Southeast Crescent is a new regional commission that's focused on economic development and anti-poverty programs in the southern states that aren't part of Appalachia. So in our region, that includes Roanoke Valley and Franklin County. So that's new resources, new grant opportunities, new funding opportunities that are now available to you that weren't available before in the other parts of our community our region that were only funded by the ARC. It is a very new regional commission. It is not super well funded right now, but they're working on that. We have a small pot of money from them that we are working with West Piedmont on identifying how we can work together to bring both of those resources to support Rocky Mount and Franklin County. With that small pot of money, we are focusing in on affordable housing. So what we're really trying to figure out is what we can do as a region to get more affordable housing built. The kinds of projects that we're looking at right now are things like a developers roundtable, so working with the private sector to identify what are the barriers and what are the regional solutions to those. Is it engagement with utilities? Is it education? What are those things that are stopping houses from being built? Financing, so forth. That identifies those barriers, but also respects the localities, making sure that your communities look like what you want them to look like. We're also looking at the creation of a regional revolving loan fund that might help the financing to get some of these things built and other sorts of educational efforts. So that's brand new, that's ongoing, but we're excited that these resources are kind of now available to the town and to our region more broadly. The last thing I'll talk about in terms of some things that are coming up, we have just started a regional electric vehicle charging station market study. And there's a ton of money out there at the federal government, a real focus on the electric vehicle market. However you feel about that market is growing. And the need for charging station infrastructure to serve that market is growing. And that technology is changing quickly. It's a whole new way of thinking about what a gas station looks like and the resources that it needs. What we're doing with that study is really trying to focus on our small urban and rural communities to make sure that when someone is in an electric vehicle and they need a charge, they come to Rocky Mount. They don't necessarily stop at a Sheetz on 81, but you have the resources you need so that they come to Rocky Mount to get charged, because currently to charge a vehicle, you have to wait 20 or 30 minutes while that happens. So we want folks to go to our small communities, park their car, get that car charged, go eat, go walk around, go visit, go spend some money while they're here and getting to know the community, instead of just, again, waiting at a Sheetz or a Buc-ee's or something. So for us, this study is, we're hoping that this is really an economic development opportunity to give you the understanding of what infrastructure needs to be there, where the right market is, what the trends are in terms of electric vehicle adoption, so that you are ready to seek the funding, get the implementation grants that's out there at the federal level, get some of these stations built, establish the public-private partnerships, and be ready to accept these folks and have them hang out and wait for a while and visit Rocky Mount. So that's coming up. That should be done by June, and so we'll have more information when that project wraps up. So I didn't want to do a comprehensive review of everything that we're doing. I'd be here, would be another 3 or 4 hour meeting. But I hope that gives you a sense of sort of the breadth of the kinds of things we tackle: community development, transportation, public health. All that can fall under the work of the Regional Commission. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have, but mainly I'm pleased to be able to speak to you tonight. I really appreciate your participation and engagement, and anytime if there's anything you need, please don't ever hesitate to reach out and ask. We're here to help.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Since we've had a lot of traffic on local highways, they're in horrible conditions.
Yes.
It's going to take a lot of money to beef it up.
Yes.
A lot of that, I would say, is because of this heavy equipment from the gas companies that's moving in. I mean, you have 220 main throughway. It's dangerous, really.
Yeah.
I hope we can find some money, some kind of way
Yeah.
to start working on these highways.
I mean, 220 is one of our priority corridors. So that's something that we're looking at, and we are looking at what's happening with economic development, how that's going to drive more congestion and more kinds of traffic. That's one of the reasons that we were really focused on this SMART scale. Congestion in Northern Virginia is definitely an issue, but issues like that for the rest of the state are a very important thing for the Commonwealth to invest in as well. So we're looking for things like that, advocating to make sure that the money that we get our fair share, and that the money stays here to improve our roads, improve safety, increase capacity where we need to, and that it doesn't just kind of get sucked up into the drain of Northern Virginia. So, but that's a really important part of the kinds of things we're looking at.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Holmes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Next, we have the 150th Anniversary History Highlight. Ms. Glenna Moore will present. No, we're ready.
No time to prepare.
Well, good evening. Glenna Moore, Town of Rocky Mount property owner. Thank you for allotting time for this 71-year-old Rocky Mountain native to share during Black History Month a bit of Rocky Mount's African American history. In 1992 and 1993, 2 buildings on the Franklin County High School campus were named in honor of 2 African American educators: the Dorothy Phelps Student Services Building and the Samuel Hawkins Central Gym. Both Dorothy Phelps and Samuel Hawkins were transplants to Franklin County in the 1940s, hired to teach at the all-black Franklin County Training School, later renamed Liam Wade High School. Both were highly respected by their beloved students. Both lived on Patterson Avenue. Mrs. Phelps was born in Bluefield, Virginia. Samuel Hawkins was born in Salisbury, North Carolina. Both received bachelor's degrees from historically black colleges, Bluefield State College and Livingstone College. Their graduate degrees were from Wayne State and Radford Universities. When the federal government forced Franklin County Public Schools to fully integrate in 1970, both were assigned to the Franklin County High School and Junior High School campus. Dorothy Phelps was an art and math teacher. She and her husband Wade owned Midway Cleaners on Warren Street. In 1970, Dorothy Phelps' husband, Wade Phelps, became the first elected African American on the Rocky Mount Town Council. That was a time in Rocky Mount when the NAACP organized peaceful protest against unfair employment practices at the newly established Kroger store and other town businesses. After 15 years of service, Councilman Phelps died in 1985. His wife Dorothy was appointed to complete his term from 1985 to 1988, making her the first African-American woman on the council. Samuel Hawkins retired from 37 years as teacher, Liam Wade High School coach, and Franklin County High School administrator. When the Central Gym was built, many in the community fondly described it as the house that Hawk built. Because of the talented Liam Wade Hawks basketball players, he encouraged to transfer to Franklin County High School to play as Eagles. With the addition of these awesome black players, the Ramsey Gym was suddenly too small to seat the hundreds of enthusiastic basketball fans supporting championship teams. One of the dynamic players was Robert Ray, who became a successful educator and coach in Roanoke and Bluefield, West Virginia. In 1996, his father, Robert Elmore Ray, Sr., became the third African American on the Rocky Mount Town Council. His daughter, Deborah, said she remembers that it was around the time Walmart opened here. She said her dad's focus was on assuring Walmart's fair employment practices, diversity, and inclusion. He served honorably until his unexpected death in 1997. In August 2001, Sadie Tuning became the fourth Black Town Council member. She was the second Black woman to be appointed when asked by John Lester to finish his term. She later ran for council and became the first Black woman to be elected 2 terms, but was defeated in 2008. Billy Stockton ran and won a seat on council in 2012 after retiring from a 31-year career with the Franklin County Sheriff's Department to become the 5th African-American member of the Rocky Mount Town Council. On July 2nd, 2019, Billy was appointed as the town's first African-American vice mayor under Mayor Steve Angle. Most recently, Ralph Casey became number 6 when he was appointed to complete Bobby Cunda's term and later to be elected in November of 2022. We appreciate and celebrate the racial and gender diversity of the Rocky Mount Town Council since 1970. Wade Phelps, Dorothy Phelps, Robert Elmore Ray Sr., Sadie Tuning, Billy Stockton, and Ralph Casey. And I am personally very proud of my town and its voting citizens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Moore will also now introduce a new member to the town staff.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I've been here 3.5 years, and I've worked in several communities in Virginia, and one thing that struck me here in the town of Rocky Mount is we have a very forward-thinking governing body. We don't just talk about things that we need and things that will make the town better, but we actually act on them. You have competent staff that bring recommendations to council, and council has always been very supportive of that. And so that the individual I introduced to you tonight is a product of the current fiscal year budget. Council approved a grant coordinator position. I know that all council members have been very supportive of that and outspoken of that. And so what we did, staff did, was we went about creating job description, going through an advertisement and an interview process, and we were able to find someone in our backyard. And so I'm here tonight to introduce our first grant coordinator position for the town of Rocky Mount, Ms. Tamika Royal. She is a local Franklin County High School product. She is with She comes through us as the grants administrator for the West Piedmont Planning District, and so we're excited to have her. She'll have an office over on the community development side, over on the, as I told her earlier, the good side of the building. So we're excited to have her. She will start a week from tomorrow, the 20th, the day after President's Day, and so she'll hit the ground running with our North Main Revitalization Project those 2 days. I don't think she knows that yet, but she will. So we're anxious and excited to have her. And so I just wanted to introduce her to you today and allow her to say some brief comments. Thank you.
Welcome.
As he said, I'm Tamika Royal. I am a Franklin County native, lived here most of my life, and I'm happy to be a part of the team. I like what Franklin County is doing. I think we're moving in a positive and new direction, so I'm happy to be here.
Welcome. I just said welcome.
Thank you.
I mean, I got
If we only had a speaker about grants and stuff,
All right, we have no one signed up to speak tonight on behalf of the hearing of citizens, so we'll move to new business. We'll start with the fluoride award from the water treatment plant. Manager Wood will present or discuss.
So, Council, I think I let you know about this recently in one of the weekly reports that I send out. And you've got in your packet tonight a letter dated January 18th of 2024 from the Commonwealth of Virginia Department of Health. And it's specifically from the Office of Drinking Water. They notified us that the town had received what they call the Water Fluoridation Quality Award from the National Center of Chronic Disease Prevention and Health Promotion, which is part of the Center for Disease Control and Prevention at the federal level. Let me just read so that everyone else who's here who may not have seen this can hear what this is about. The town of Rocky Mount was able to consistently treat the drinking water with fluoride to an optimal level for preventing tooth decay. The Office of Drinking Water recognizes communities that maintain a consistent level of optimally fluoridated water throughout the year. We thank you and your staff who work diligently to make this happen. Community water fluoridation was recognized as one of the 10 great public health achievements of the 20th century, and the CDC continues to recommend water fluoridation as a safe, practical, cost-effective, and equitable method of preventing tooth decay. A total of 58 public water systems in the Commonwealth of Virginia received this award for 2022. So a couple of quick comments. I think most people know that, but they highlight it here. Fluoridation is done to prevent tooth decay and have all of us have healthier teeth, something that was started in the 20th century and continues to be a benefit. One of the tricks, and I don't even understand all the details, Kevin can answer questions if y'all have them. One of the tricks with fluoride is you want it at a certain level to do that or give us that benefit of preventing the tooth decay, but you don't want it too high because it's actually can be poisonous if it's or too toxic if it's too high of a level. So that's something that they keep an eye on all the time out at the water plant, and so that's what the award is recognizing is the good work that's being done. It says here that there are a total of 58 public water systems in the Commonwealth that received this award. So I don't know how many there are in the state. I don't think Kevin probably knows off the top of his head, but there's a lot more than 58. So not all of the water systems are receiving the award. The other thing to point out, and I'm saying this mainly just so that people won't think it's a typo or that I misread it. It is for 2022. They do these about a year in arrears, and so that's why we're just now getting the 22 award because that's just how far or how long it takes them to get this done. So, Kevin, is there anything you wanted to add to?
my staff's the one that does it. I'm just here smiling.
They did. This is an award. One of the reasons that I like to highlight this, one, because the staff in the water that are at the water plant deserve the recognition, but it's nice sometimes to have these sort of independent assessments that are done of the work that they're doing. We always say they do good work, but this is other people that don't have anything to do with the town that are looking at the work they do and saying that they're doing a good job. So I like to recognize that because it is important to do all these things right. Having good water is a basic amenity or a basic service that people expect in town, and it's one of the things that we don't talk about much because Kevin and his guys do such a good job. We don't have to talk about it very much. So, thank you.
next we have the data collection platform for economic development. Mr. Bernard will present.
Well, let me say something before Daniel kind of gives you all the overview. In the budget this year, there was, and Daniel's going to get into the details, there was money set aside to do an economic development strategic plan. It's actually been in there for, I think, 2 years? I think 2 years, yeah, for a couple of years. And so the reason that we're coming to you today, Daniel's going to talk about what we'd like to use the money for. It's not, completely, different than what the money was originally intended for, but it's different enough that we felt like we wanted to come and let y'all know about it, just so you'd know what we were trying to do. And so the action that will be requested of council at the end of Daniel's presentation is to allow staff to proceed with using the money in a slightly different way than what was originally envisioned.
Right. So what was originally envisioned was an economic development strategic plan. And those plans have two primary deliverables. The first is recommendations on how a community can grow its economy. But in a town like Rocky Mount, we're small. One small thing can completely alter what those recommendations might be. In addition to that, we already have what's functionally a small area plan going on with the North Main revitalization, and that itself has its own economic restructuring plan. So that's a significant area of town that is already getting its own economic development strategic plan. And as we've seen with the housing project or the land purchase, sometimes a project can drastically alter what the plans would otherwise be. So as soon as you get a plan like that, within a month it can be out of date. The second key deliverable for these strategic plans is data. Traditionally, a consultant would come in, they would collect data through a zip code survey on pen and paper. So you're paying for a very outdated mode of collecting data, when in this day and age there are far more advanced ways to collect that data. So what staff is recommending is a subscription to a service called Placer. They use geofencing technology to collect data on that would be very useful for economic development purposes. So specifically, we'd be able to know for tourism how many people are coming to town, what they're doing while they're in town, and how many people are coming to events specifically. So for example, we'd be able to know how many people came to 150 Fest or how many people come home to Franklin County Christmas year over year. In addition, there are some high-level analyses that they automatically aggregate for you. So we'd be able to identify a empty parcel or an empty building, and based on the square footage of that, what our trade area is, what retail business might be a good fit there. And specifically, this service would be able to tell us what our trade area is, which is one of the most important pieces of data. So right now, if a retail business they were expanding in Virginia, they were looking at Rocky Mount, they might see Rocky Mount has a population of 5,000. That's not enough for us to add a location there. But as we know, Rocky Mount is much bigger than that population. So our trade area is likely in excess of 20,000. But we don't have a specific number that we can point to. So this would allow us to go to those retailers and tell them, hey, our trade area is actually 25,000. So it is worth putting business X into Rocky Mount. In addition, we would be able to have this data available to small businesses. So if there was someone who wanted to open a business, they just need a little bit more data for their business plan, they'd be able to come to us, and we'd be able to tell them, look, provide them with the data that would give them a more competitive business plan and give them better access to capital. And that's a small selection of all the services that this would provide, because in addition, there's traffic analysis that would be able to tell what roads are being used, even how fast people are driving. So there's quite a bit of information that would be available through this platform.
So Daniel mainly focused on the economic development part because that is where what the money was intended to be used for. There's a lot of other areas, like he started to mention, where this information will come in handy. One obvious one is traffic. VDOT comes out, and I think sometimes I've notified council, VDOT's going to have the strips out. If anybody asks you what these strips are, it's to count cars and all that. That's the old way of doing it, and there's still good reasons to do it that way, but the new way to do it is with this kind of technology. And so instead of once a year getting a count, we can actually look at, what was it 30 days ago, what was it 2 years ago, and you can compare those numbers, and you have all that data. You can pick any point in time basically and see how much traffic was on the various roads in town. It also helps for grants, when we're applying for grants, and we can say, how many, because Daniel talked about the economic development part, but the other way it helps is on grants, where you can say, this many people come to town. You can talk about, again, how much traffic there is, but there's a lot of data that comes in handy when you're applying for grants that we can also get from the service. So there's quite a few uses, some of them that we're not even aware of because we don't have the data yet, but once we're aware of it, it'll give us even more data. But it's a good way to present data to either economic development prospects to show why they should come here, but also for people that are doing grant money or having grant applications or judging grant applications. We can have more data in there to support the case we're making for why we should get the grant.
And Placer is known in the industry as a industry leader, so it's an excellent program.
Is it a subscription or is it a purchase?
It's subscription.
Yearly, so we would subscribe yearly.
Correct. So what we're proposing is at least a 1-year subscription. That way we would be able to determine whether it's usefulness moving forward.
And the geofence would just be around town limits, or we have control over that? How does that work?
So we'd be able to set those points of interest. We'd be able to put it around town. We could, if there were a specific event, we'd be able to put that geofence, around the footprint of that event.
Like when we did the demo call with them, Councilmember Lee, we told them that we knew that we would have kind of an abnormal number or abnormal people in town on the day of 150 Fest. So they pulled up that date for us, and we had thrown numbers out when people asked how many people were here. We said, I don't know, 10, 15,000 people. And how'd you get that number? Well, I counted everybody, right? We kind of made up a number. But when they pulled up the data for that day, and they actually drew an area around the downtown, you could actually see, and it actually showed that there were 16,000 people present that day when we had 150 Fest. So it gives you very accurate data and very timely data. And the nice thing is, I think is it 5 years that they go back? I think it said.
Correct.
Somewhere in that neighborhood where you can go back at any point in time and you can see how things have changed, what sometimes is very useful depending on what you're looking at.
Now, I know the Chamber of Commerce at the lake has something similar to this platform. It's not the same one, is it?
It is not. So they use a platform called Datafy, and they use third-party data, whereas Placer uses first-party, which is significantly more accurate.
Gotcha. But we can tell where these individuals are coming from also and do more targeting?
Within
marketing?
certain parameters. So we can say, we have a lot of people coming from Greensboro, and we'd be able to know where to target ads so that we can get more of their friends coming.
Perfect.
Do we need a motion to?
Yeah.
Sounds like you got a plan. I make a motion to change for the funding.
So you got a motion to reallocate the funding?
Yep.
I'll second. And I have a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have a closed session this evening. In order to enter into a closed meeting, the motion will be made to move into the closed session under the Virginia Code section cited as section 2.2-3711A3 and 7. Do I have a motion to go into closed meeting under the cited code?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. If there is no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for attending the meeting. After the closed session, council will return to the council chambers.
Mark, I never thought I'd ask you for